Hello and welcome to Veterans of the Valley. I'm Tom Turbyville. Texas A&M class of 1948. Bob Spoede is an author, a former professor, one of the staunchest A&M sports supporters you'll ever find, and a veteran of the Vietnam War. He was older than most, 38 years old, when he first arrived in country in Vietnam. Meet Dr. Bob Spoede of College Station. Bob, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you very much for your service. Let's go back. You were born near Wallace, Texas, right just a mile from the banks of the Brazos River. Talk a little bit about your growing up, where you grew up, and what eventually brought you to Texas A&M.
Well, I was born, as I said, in October, just after cotton picking time, on the cotton farm out on the Brazos Valley, and my father was German extraction. My mother was typical pioneer stock,
right.
And but we moved across the river to other land right across the Brazos River into Fort Bend County. So I started my education in Simonton, Texas for 2 years, and then being the Depression, my father had achieved a reserve commission and kept it active. He got it in World War I, and kept it active during the 20s and into the 30s. And then President Roosevelt started the Civilian Conservation Corps program, the CCC, and they needed Army officers to honcho that. And so he was called to active duty. So we moved from Fort Bend County to Lufkin, Texas, where he was a sub-district commander. And then we moved a lot, and they wondered if some bill collector was chasing us, maybe. We moved from Lufkin to Waco,
right.
And from Waco to Marshall, and from Marshall to Fort Worth. We were living in Fort Worth on Pearl Harbor time, and then we moved to San Antonio, where my father was provost marshal of all the places other than the military bases in San Antonio.
Right.
He had to keep peace and order among the 500,000 military types within 50 miles of San Antonio.
You graduated from Thomas Jefferson in San Antonio.
And I graduated from Thomas Jefferson, and in 1944,
right.
I came to A&M. My brother had been lost as a Marine Corps fighter pilot flying off Guadalcanal in the summer of 1943, and I wanted to join the Marines immediately upon graduating from high school. My mother asked me to get 1 semester of college, and I honored her because I knew she was grieving mourning for my brother.
Absolutely.
And so I said I would, and they kept their word, and when I finished 1 semester at A&M, I went back to San Antonio and enlisted in the Marine Corps, and they said, well, we have so many here waiting to be called up that we think you could probably get another semester of college. We recommend you go back and re-enroll for the second semester in the fall of 1944, which I did, and I finished that semester, and then I went to the Marines.
Yeah, I want to go back to when you entered. You actually enrolled at Texas A&M on D-Day, June 6th,
I was standing in line. I was standing in line enrolling when General Rudder was climbing the cliffs of Point du Hoc.
Wow.
So that's where, I mean, my job was a lot less dangerous than his.
What was the campus, what was the town, the community like in the mid-40s?
Well, the community there were farms between College Station and between A&M. I hardly called it College Station or town, but there were farms between here and Bryan. There was no downtown College Station. We joked, I worked on the battalion, and we had I had a Monday morning sports report kind of show for about 5 minutes, and we laughingly would say, welcome to downtown College Station, and we'd try to picture where downtown College Station might be. The closest we could come to it was Northgate.
Well, yeah, people still can't find downtown College Station, so not a lot has changed then. You did, after a while at Texas A&M, you did leave the school, and you did become active military, active actually in the Marines before you came back to Texas A&M, and you went to Germany, I know, too. Talk about sort of that span.
Well, when I came back, I re-enrolled in ROTC. Now I was in the junior level ROTC. I was a freshman I was a sophomore academically, a junior in ROTC, and a senior in privileges.
Right.
But then after about a year, the professor of military science in my branch came in and said, the Army has started a new program called the Distinguished Military Students and Distinguished Military Graduates. And if you have such and such qualifications, we will designate you a distinguished military student. If you maintain it until you graduate, you will be called a distinguished military graduate, and the Army will tender you a regular Army commission, which was a lifelong dream of mine. It was like somebody coming in and say, want your dream, just come up and get it.
Right.
And so I was up there getting it real quick like.
Absolutely.
And so I then went in the Army when I graduated from A&M in June, the 1st of June, 1949, and went to basic training, then went 3-year tour in Germany.
Exactly. And you went to Germany. You were in Germany about the entire span of the Korean War.
Absolutely. Perfect span.
Because you chose to go to Germany. Had you chosen to go to Japan, you would have been in line to bypass Japan and go on to Korea.
Right. Yeah, it's, one of the ironies was that when I went through basic training, the young married officers in their first year of marriage tended to be asked for Japan. The bachelors tended to ask for Germany. The reason is in Japan, quote, you never went in the field. You stayed at home with your little young bride. But if you went to Germany, you spent 6 months a year on the field because everybody knew that the Russians were going to come across into West Germany at any moment.
Right.
And but when you got leave, you could go to Paris, you could go to Riviera, you could go to Italy. There were so many things to do in Germany when you did have time off.
Right.
If you were in Japan, what could you do after you seen the mountain?
Yeah, exactly. So you went to the more fun spot.
So I asked for Germany and got Germany, and when I was on pre-overseas leave, and all of a sudden the word came out that North Koreans have come down to South Korea, and President Truman ordered the Army in. And so all of my friends, that didn't even stop in Japan, but went right in. And some of them were very sad stories, joining troops they didn't know and not having any bond of commitment to them. And I lost a lot of friends in Korea.
Exactly.
But I went to Germany, which was supposedly the dangerous place, but turned out to be the safe place.
Right. You were in the 16th Infantry in
I was
Germany.
in 16th Infantry.
Talk about what your job was there.
In 16th Infantry, I started off as a platoon leader, second lieutenant platoon leader, moved up, became a company executive officer, then a company commander, and then a battalion staff officer, S1. Then I rotated home in 1953. From 50 to 53, I was in Germany, and when I got home, during my post-overseas leave, the shooting stopped in Korea. So it started when I was on my pre-overseas leave. It ended when I was on my post-overseas leave.
Right. You left Germany. You came back. You were at what is now known as UT Arlington. I guess it was called what? Arlington State College?
Arlington State College, yes.
Then as an ROTC
You're part of the INM system at that time.
I see. You were an ROTC instructor at that time, right? Right. And then you went infantry school. You went to Fort Benning. You also had nearly a year in Korea after the Korean War was over.
I had over a year. I had 16 months in Korea, right on the DMZ, and right on the Imjin River. And as I said, when I came out of my hooch, I'd look across the valley, and on the other side was North Korea. I could see North Korea from where we were. Right. And I have pictures somewhere that us manning our positions right on the line there with the trenches and dugouts and all this stuff.
And eventually you went back to Germany for 3 years in the 24th Infantry.
Yeah, I went back with my wife and family. By this time I was married, had 3 children, and went back to Augsburg, Germany, and spent 3 years in I had the 34th Infantry Regiment and the 19th Infantry Regiment, and also division headquarters is G2 plans in division headquarters, and spent 3 years in Augsburg.
1965, you went to Fort Hood then, and then in 1965 you went to Vietnam. You were 38 years old when you went to Vietnam. That obviously is older than most soldiers when they went over to Vietnam.
I was a professional soldier. I was a rather senior major, kind of. I had been executive officer of the 1st Battalion of the 41st Mechanized Infantry at Fort Hood, and I went over there as an advisor to the Vietnamese Army. But I was part of the earliest buildup under President Johnson in the Vietnamese War. Emergency requisition of troops, and there were only 25,000 when I arrived. There were 300,000 when I came home.
Right. You were stationed in the Central Highlands, the coastal plains of South Vietnam, and as a military advisor.
Right.
Talk a little bit about what your various duties were in Vietnam. I know you did a lot of traveling, for one thing.
Well, I didn't do any traveling for pleasure, particularly.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, you were going from base to base a lot.
Yeah, well, we were stationed in Kontum. We were advising, and we had, under our advising, the sector we were in, the outpost, the Arvin Regiment up at Dak To, which is north of Khartoum.
Right.
And they were attacked, so we helicoptered up there. And then later, the Special Forces camp at Duko came under attack, and we had control of that operation, controlling the relieving the Special Forces with Arvin forces at Duko. Arvin is Army of the Republic of Vietnam, but commonly called among GIs at the time, Arvin. And so we did that, and then Play Me Special Forces camp came under siege, and we oversaw that as well. And then we also kept Highway 19, the Mangyang Pass, open during the Ia Drang Valley conflict. I wasn't at Ia Drang Valley, but I heard the cannon and I heard the guns. We were close enough to hear it, but our job was to keep the supply route from the coast to Pleiku open.
Right.
And
Ia Drang Valley, I think people who have read the book or seen the movie We Were Soldiers, or the book We Were Soldiers and Young then, that's the area that
that's the Ia Drang Valley campaign, right?
Right. That General Hal Moore commanded at that time. And I think a lot of people have seen that movie. You said it was kind of ironic. You had done 2 tours of Germany, you'd done a tour of Korea, but it wasn't until you got to Vietnam that you really got an idea what combat was all about. It was the first combat that you saw, and it opened your eyes that this was for real. They weren't playing games.
Yeah, and I'd seen a lot of practice things. I'd seen fortifications that we did, and other, but when I flew into Saigon for the first time, and I looked down now Ho Chi Minh City, I looked down and I saw the little triangular forts and so forth. I said, those are for real. Those are not practice or training exercises. And then at night, when I put my head down the pillow in the Brinks Hotel in Saigon, and I hear the cannon shooting, and I thought, they don't have a safety officer on them. They're trying to kill people out there, and so they don't care where they fall.
Right.
Oh, and you talk about jobs. Another job I had was, planning what we call seeding areas of the countryside. When we didn't talk about this before, but I plot areas, rectangles on the map, where the B-52s would come in and drop delayed time bombs, 500-pound bombs that would be delayed up to 2 weeks in length, trying to deny that area to the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese. And you walking through the jungle, then a 500-pound bomb go off, it could ruin your whole day.
Indeed. You talked about Vietnam, and many times when we were talking earlier, you described it as a weird war. You talked about times where there would be combat going over in one area, and there'd be people playing tennis in another area. Talk about Vietnam, the weird war, as you observed.
It was a weird war. I never ate as well as I ate in Vietnam at times. I ate sea rations at times, but when I was in garrison, on Sunday afternoon, we could pick out as many steaks as we wanted and charcoal grill them.
Right.
And I had a nice bed. I slept under 4 blankets at night. It was cool where we were up in the Central Highlands. But this one time, particularly, we got word that about 5,000 of the bad guys were coming into the north side of Khartoum, and we were separated from our counterparts, the Vietnamese army people, over by several miles. They were on the northeast corner of Khartoum, and we were on the northwest corner of Khartoum. And we'd run and got into our bunker, our concrete reinforced bunker. And the senior advisor, full colonel, looked at me and said, well, Bob, we're supposed to be advising people over there. Do you want to go over there and be with our counterparts? And I said, sir, you used the wrong word. Do I want to? No. Will I? Yes. So we got in a Jeep and started going out of our compound, and with our helmets on and grenades and all the stuff you see, and looked over there, and here were some people from agricultural advising people out playing tennis under light tennis courts, and I thought the odds were 60-40 at least. I was going to be dead in the next 15-20 minutes.
Right.
But it turned out the intelligence report was an error, and we got over there safely. And
you thought, boy, the last thing I'm going to see is people playing tennis.
People playing tennis in Vietnam, yeah. It's that kind of 8 to 5 born away. At times it wasn't, though,
Right.
So.
I want to go back to your Vietnam experience in a little bit, but let's go ahead and go to some pictures now that you supplied to us. You have a great scrapbook that your wife has put together for you. I want to let you know my wife was very jealous of that scrapbook. It was very well put together, and a lot of these photographs that we're about to see actually came from that scrapbook, and also some other photographs. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these pictures. There we go. There is a very young Bob Spoede. About how old were you there?
I guess I was about 12, 11 or 12, probably in Waco or somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, just I'd recognize you right off. I'd recognize you anywhere.
Thank you.
You have almost as much hair now as you did then.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next picture.
I was in high school ROTC, Thomas Jefferson High School. I put on the uniform when I was 14 years of age and wore it till I retired in '68.
In 1968. This was an article from the battalion that shouted out the news that Bob Spoede and
Bill Potts
would share the duties of the BAT sports editor. And that first paragraph, I'm trying to remember exactly.
They talk about all the places I lived.
Yeah, that's what it was. There was something very funny about that first paragraph. It's hard to read it right now, but it was talking about you. But that's Chuck Maisel. I noticed that. Is he in relation to Ivan Maisel, who writes for the
I don't know.
I just noticed that last name. He's a sports writer in Texas. But anyway, that's an article.
Also in 1948, I went to visit my parents. We didn't talk about this before. In Germany, and they sent me over to see the Olympics.
Right.
In London.
Right.
And I had a battalion sports card, a press card, from the battalion.
Right.
And they were having a demonstration by the divers on diving, just a demonstration, not a competition.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see it. But I didn't have a ticket.
Yeah.
So I went up to the gate and flashed the battalion sports pass, and they let me into the thing. He just waved me on in, and so I went in, and I came back and told the sports information director at the time, Dub King,
right.
And he thought that was so hilarious. He put it on the Associated Press wire,
This is another picture we're looking at. That's your dad swearing you in. Talk about that picture.
Well, in the summer of '48, I went to Germany, as I mentioned. My father commanded a railway security battalion. He guarded railway shipments, his battalion did, military police battalion. And I'd finished my work at the end of my junior year, and I was eligible to get my reserve commission. And so he swore me in for my reserve commission. And then a year later, I got my regular Army commission.
And that's your
You had to be a college graduate to get the regular Army commission.
What was your father's name?
Herman H. Spoede, Herman Henry Spoede.
And he served in World War I.
He served in World War I and got his commission through OCS in World War I and kept it active during the 20s and into the 30s.
Here's a photograph that was lifted from that scrapbook. Where were you there? You recall?
That was looks like in Vietnam, in Korea.
In Korea?
Looks like, yeah. I can't see the background very well.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Well, that's when he was an Army officer, young Army officer. Oh, that was from just before I got married.
I see.
And I was just returned from Germany.
Right.
And, I got my wedding picture made.
Bob and his wife Nancy there you are on your wedding day, which at the time that we're viewing this, you will have been married already 53 years. So
right. Yes.
That was in February.
February the 8th, 1954. We met after I came back from Germany on August the 30th, 1953.
She's a very pretty lady, just like she was then, she is now.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I bet you do. Here's some pictures from Vietnam. What are we looking at there?
Oh, that's it, where we were keeping the Mang Yang Pass open, and we were sitting out on the sticks, and in what's they call a regional force company outpost. Regional force was not very combat ready, and we were living there and operating out of there, and the conditions of the people there were pretty poor. I mean, they didn't have many of the comforts of life, as you can see, and nor did we at the time. We really came out. That red dirt is very clay. It's really sticky, and it stains everything. Great clay dirt.
Your unit had a pet leopard?
Yeah, we had a pet leopard in our.
This is actually you holding the leopard here.
Well, I'm patting him.
You're patting the leopard, right?
With temerity. The compound commander had gone down to the market and bought this cub leopard nursed from a female German shepherd who had pups.
Right.
And the pups. But the leopard did not like Vietnamese, which we liked because he was a good watch cat.
A good watch cat. Okay, let's
But
move
they
on.
had to chain him up later on because we'd drop on general officers walking around the compound and practicing his leaps and dropping on prey.
Talk about this aerial photograph. What are we looking at?
Oh, that's the special. That's that RFPF camp that I talked about. I think, yeah. And so that's where we were living and camping out there and operating radios. And we were sending out helicopters to land spasmodically in the jungle and jungle clearance just to see if we could scare up any VC or while the Iadrang Valley was going on. We didn't want anybody coming in and cutting off the supply route into Pleiku.
Right. Okay. Next one. This is the cover of a book that you have written. It's a novel called Double Identity, A Texan in Hitler's Right. A novel by Robert Spoede, as you can see. Talk about your book, which you just finished about a year ago, right? It's published about a year ago?
Yes. Well, it's about an Aggie, obviously. And I'd like to say I've had now my third career. My first career was an Army officer. My second career was a college professor. My third career, I'd like to say, is a novelist. I've got a bunch more in my mind I want to get down on paper.
Exactly.
But this particular book is the story of an Aggie who gets marooned in Germany, loses part of his leg, he can't escape, and ends up finding out he's married. The person who's impersonating is married to a German noblewoman, and it's kind of a suspense romance, and it is not autobiographical.
Right.
It is purely a novel from my background of knowledge of A&M and knowledge of Germany and knowledge of the Army and the Army ways, military ways. And it's received some real good accolades from readers who said.
Indeed, it has. I'll help you sell your book here. Lieutenant General John Miller, U.S. Marine Corps retired and College Station, says Double Identity, excuse me, is a great read. It has everything you could want in a book: mystery, intrigue, action, romance, and loyalty. So he liked the book, and plus a whole lot of others have read it and said some great things about it. How can somebody get the book?
Well, you can get the book by going to iunivice.com. You can go get it at Scripture Haven at the mall. You can get it at Caravel Paper Books over by TJ Maxx.
Okay.
And you can get it at the University Bookstore. And I hope to have a book signing at the Scripture Haven sometime after this comes out.
Great. Great. I hope it keeps being successful. You retired from the Army in July of 1968. You got your master's at Hardin-Simmons, and then you went all the way out east to William and Mary to get your doctorate, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then you were a teacher. You taught in a beautiful part of the country in Michigan, on right near the lake there at Mackinac College.
Mackinac College.
Mackinac College.
I said not near. It was in the lake. It's an island, Mackinac Island, Michigan.
In the lake. Yeah.
A very historic island.
Right.
An old English fort was built there.
Right.
And it unbelievably beautiful. There are no cars on the island other than a fire wagon and an ambulance. Everything is by horse or by bike or by foot. And it was a wonderful year. It was started by tried to restart it by a television evangelist, but he closed it after 1.5 semester, and he got in financial troubles with various things and closed it. And but it was a wonderful year's experience.
I bet it was.
I mean, we lived right 20 feet from Lake Huron, could hear the water lapping at night. The water froze, and the year we were there, it was called Blue Ice. So we could put music out on our little porch over the lake, and the students could come out and ice skate out on the lake right in front of our house, and we have them in for coffee, for donuts and hot chocolate and so forth. It was a wonderful experience.
You went on to teach history at a college called Bryan College in
William
Tennessee.
Jennings Bryan College, named for the great commoner.
Right.
and it was located where the Ghost Monkey trial occurred. And it was a result of that. While Mr. Bryan was there in Dayton, Tennessee, he said somebody ought to start a college for Christian young people up on one of these hills. And that's all he had to say, and they started collecting pledges for the William Jennings Bryan Memorial University. And they had pledges from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, from Al Smith, from many, many famous people to commitment. That was started in 1925, but on the way to the bank, something happened in 1929. But nevertheless, the college got started in 1930. I cannot think of a more horrible time to try to start a college other than at the height of the Great Depression. But nevertheless, it got started, it's hung on. It's now pretty good. It's a very good academic institution. Very tiny, which I love because I can know the names of every student on campus by the end of the school year.
I know that you came back to Aggie Land in 1991, and I know that you have thoroughly enjoyed it, a supporter of the school you loved so dearly. I know you're very active and have been in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Right.
And you try to get to every athletic event that you can, right?
That's right. That's what I came back for. I did it when I was a student. I came back. I had a wonderful time as a student at A&M, and I came back and I enjoyed those, and I came back, and the Lord has really blessed us in the ministries we have here, Bible classes, my wife's Bible class, my Bible class, or the Bible class we lead, and it's been a wonderful time and a wonderful 15, 16, 17 years I'm getting on toward now.
Right. You and your wife Nancy have 3 children, is that right?
That's right.
Rebecca, Parker, and David Spoede, class of 81 of the University of Texas Law School, is that right?
Yes.
And also Paula Halverson.
Right.
And those are your...
Those are 3 children. Then we have 9 grandchildren.
And 9 grandchildren.
Right. Our son's not been married, and he's failed on his duties of producing us more grandchildren. Well, just think how many we could have if he had gotten married and had about 6 of them. We had 15.
We're out of time, Bob, but thank you very much for your service.
Well, thank you very much for letting me be here.
Bob Spoede and his wife Nancy have been married 53 years and spend their retirement still giving back to the community, whether it's through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes or their support of just about every Aggie athletic team. We salute Bob Spoede for his service to our country and to the Brazos Valley. I'm Tom Turbeville. Join us next time on Veterans of the Valley.